What's up everyone, I'm Julian Kelly. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about social media, news, bias, and everything in between. If you're anything like me, you spend a lot of time on social media, liking, commenting, retweeting, sharing, watching, listening, and reading. And if you're between 18 and 24, which is where I fall, you're just as likely to have a Facebook account as a driver's license. A lot of what I consume on these platforms is news. It's a lot easier than having to pick up the paper or sit down through some dull news segment. Instead, news might be sitting between a photo of your grandma's new flowers and a meme your friends tagged you in. 7 out of 10 US adults actively follow the news. And as you might have guessed, young adults are most likely to get their news from social media. A 2016 Pew study showed US citizens between 18 and 29 get 32% of their news from social media, 1.5 times what those a decade older get. But the intense personalization of social media means those same Americans are far less likely to trust the news. Belief in news bias is already high. Only 18% of US adults trust a lot of the news they get from national news organizations, but only 7% trust the news they get on social media. The fifth estate is a term originally coined by this guy, Professor William H. Dutton, a researcher on internet cultures referencing the fourth estate, traditional news media. The fifth estate refers to a network of people sharing news online, a participatory editorial layer. As the online news market becomes more saturated, incidental exposure to news through social media becomes easier and might seem like an opportunity for passive learning. A 2017 study showed that people who use social media primarily for informational purposes are more likely to believe the news would find them, as opposed to actively seeking it out. While true, it's hard to get through even a page of scrolling before seeing a news story, the same study showed that news finds me perceptions actually led to a decrease in political knowledge, based on questions about Obamacare, the length of term for U.S. senators, UN-U.S. negotiations, and other general political questions. News find me perceptions also led to an increased distrust in news. Those distrustful of news more often lean to the political right and are less likely to seek corresponding sources on the left. This leads distrusting news consumers to fringe content that affirms their beliefs. So far, this seems pretty obvious and a little preachy. But that's because news finds me perceptions are a design of social media platforms. Traditional news sources apply gatekeeping strategy to stories that might be misinformed or straight up untrue. Social media is more likely to just limit the audience to these stories instead. The way social media platforms algorithmically serve articles mean these new media organizations make more money by serving content tailored to their audience, a persuasion that runs counter to the traditional unbiased goal of news media. If a headline isn't clickbaity, it probably won't get many clicks. If it is, it's probably not the most accurate coverage. When this is combined with the aforementioned distrust of news, fringe sites that might have limited exposure are boosted to the spotlight by the fifth estate. This presents a challenging problem when comparing the bias of the fifth estate to that of the fourth. While studies show most mainstream news outlets, save Fox, have little bias to the right or left, their audiences lean heavily. Because of this, platforms more commonly serve these sites to liberal users, leaving the void on the conservative side for radical fringe views. An excellent example of this is InfoWars, Alex Jones's far-right news site that peddles in largely inflammatory exaggerations of the truth. I mean, just look at this headline. Rather than ban the content, which Facebook worried would trigger a counter-reaction, the platform buried the source so politically moderate users wouldn't see the content. Only after a number of other social media platforms banned InfoWars did Facebook employ the more traditional gatekeeping tactic as well. These platforms also work to affirm demographic biases. Conservative sites overrepresented by their targeting towards men included the Drudge Report and Sean Hannity's show. But the most overrepresented targeted towards women was the relatively moderate ABC News. In a source's target for race, class, education level, and other factors, outlets can bias further and further with their coverage. Now that we've moved away from a unidirectional model of news to stories bouncing around social media, new responsibilities are posed for news outlets, social media platforms, and users. News outlets must be ever more vigilant that their platform isn't over-associated with an audience that might be biased. And platforms need to take note that, yes, the appearance of political balance might run counter to the truth. And for us millennial Gen Z hybrids, it probably wouldn't hurt to actually click the stories instead of posting hot takes responding to the headlines.